Good afternoon, students. Welcome to the live lecture of functional analysis. In the last lecture, we have solved two examples depending on the equivalent norm. In the first example, two norm spaces are given to us x and y with the norms defined as norm x and norm y, and the other norms also defined in the spaces. Norm is a norm defined on x, norm dash is a norm defined on y. The definition was given here, and it has to show that this norm is equivalent to norm x, norm dash is equivalent to norm y. To show this, first we have verified it is a norm. This whatever the norm x defined is a norm, and then later we have shown this as equivalent. Okay, therefore we have carried out two steps to complete the proof of the first part. For the second part, I have asked you to solve. I don't know how many of you have solved it. Okay. In the second example, we have shown that on the LPN spaces, whatever this norm P defined with this definition, summation mod xi raised to P raised to 1 by P, then with this norm for the different values of P, we have shown that all norms defined on this LPN spaces are equivalent to one another. For this, we have made use of the corollary. Two norms are equivalent if and only if convergence in norm 1 implies and implied by convergence in norm 2. For this, XR here convergence sequence in norm X norm P we have started with, and we have proved that the same sequence is convergent in X norm Q also, right? XR convergence in norm P implies and implied by is the same convergence in norm Q as well, and by the corollary one can say that norm P and norm Q are equivalent. Since P and Q are arbitrary, one can say that all norms defined on this LPN spaces with that norm P definitions are equivalent. Now in today's lecture, we were going for the next part of this unit, finite dimensional nonlinear spaces, and under this heading, we were going to observe some of the properties of finite dimensional nonlinear spaces. Okay, I think you are familiar with what is the meaning of finite dimensional. Correct now? What is the meaning of finite dimensional nonlinear spaces? What is finite dimensional? What is finite dimensional vector space or linear space? Yes? Actually, we were going to study some properties of this finite dimensional non-linear spaces. Very interesting characteristics we were going to observe. But before that, the idea should be clear. What is finite dimensions? How many number of elements are there in the basis of this kind of vector spaces?
Finite.
Why you are not replying them? Huh? The number of elements in basis are finite, right? Okay, let us move on to the first property. The first property say that any two n-dimensional normed linear spaces over the same scalar field are topologically isomorphic. What is topologically isomorphic?
If it is linear, 1 and T and T inverse.
Yes. Now we are going to show that, prove that any two n-dimensional. We were not knowing what is the vector space, actually what are the elements, but we know the dimension simply. Any two n-dimensional normed spaces over same scalar field over some scalar field are topologically isomorphic. Topologically isomorphic. Right now. Now let us just recall what is topological isomorphism. Okay. Suppose x and y are the two normed linear spaces. A mapping T is defined from x to y. Then the two spaces, norm spaces, are said to be topologically isomorphic to one another if it satisfies the condition 1 1 on 2 T and T inverse are continuous. Which one I forgot? Linearity, right now. Y onto is essential in this case. because we were saying topologically isomorphic to another. That's why onto is necessary, right? Now, if it is only show that there is a topological isomorphism exists, then there is no need to show it is onto. Correct? Now, here also by proving this proof, we were assuming x and y are the two non-linear spaces with n dimensions. Okay, these are the n-dimensional non-linear spaces. Instead of proving the topological isomorphism between the two spaces, knowing topological isomorphism is an equivalence relation. What is an equivalence relation? Topological isomorphism. May I say every space is topologically isomorphic with itself?
Yes, ma'am.
X topologically isomorphic with y implies y topologically isomorphic with x. X topologically isomorphic with y topologically isomorphic with z implies x topologically isomorphic with z. With this, one can say this topological isomorphism is an equivalence relation. Okay. So by use of this equivalence relation, we instead of showing the topological isomorphism between the two spaces, we were going to show that initially x is topologically isomorphic with Kn. What is Kn? K is the field on which our scalar is defined and Kn be the n-tuple. The elements in this are n-tuple scalar, n-tuple vectors. Right now? Right now? Therefore, what is the aim? Instead of showing x is topologically isomorphic with y, we were going to show that any n-dimensional space is topologically isomorphic with Kn. What do you think the dimension of Kn will be? Kn.
N.
What? Yes, it is n. Therefore, this is also of dimension n. This is arbitrary non-linear space, which is, if we show this, it is topologically isomorphic with Kn. Then, may I say Kn is topologically isomorphic with any other non-linear space of n dimension? Right?
Yes,
No.
ma'am.
Then by using this transitivity property, x is topologically isomorphic with Kn, Kn is topologically isomorphic with y. May I say x will be topologically isomorphic with y? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, we were going to use this part. Instead of showing directly a topological isomorphism here, we were going to make use of this. We were going to show x is topologically isomorphic to Kn. Kn is the n-dimensional linear space with dimension n-dimensional linear space with n-tuple vectors. Is that okay? This is what the theme of the proof we were going to follow. Okay. Let us come to the proof now. Here what I will write, let x and y be any two x and y be any two n-dimensional non-linear spaces over the same scalar field K. Okay, underlying field for the two linear spaces are same. Now I will write, since the relation topological isomorphism is an equivalence relation. No need to prove it is an equivalence relation, okay? We were writing directly, it is an equivalence relation. It will be sufficient to prove. It will be sufficient to prove that x is topologically isomorphic. X is topologically isomorphic to Kn, where the norm is given by. What is the norm we were defining? On K. This is norm x. Okay. X is an element of K. Therefore, what can I write? Let me write this as an n-tuple vector. Let me write this n-tuple vector with the scalar, say zeta 1, zeta 2 up to zeta n. And we are going to define this as summation mod zeta I square I running from 1 to n bracket raised to half. Which formula I have used? Distance formula, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, distance formula we were using for the norm. Therefore, x is this n-tuple vector, zeta 1, zeta 2, zeta n belongs to k. Therefore, this norm on which space we were giving? This norm on kn, right? Norm on kn we were giving with this norm definition. Okay. Now let me go for defining the mapping. As I wanted to show there is a topological isomorphism between k and x or x and k, and I will define the mapping between the two spaces. Let us define the mapping T. Okay, I will define the mapping from kn norm to x, and let us define the norm on this x to be some norm x. Understood the symbol? Simple norm is a norm on Kn, and if it is norm x, it will be a norm on capital X. Is that okay? Now how I am going to define this? By, you have to select one vector in this Kn space, T x, right now. But what is x we have written? An n-tuple vector zeta 1 to zeta n. Okay. N-tuple vector zeta 1 to zeta n, and we were going to define this as summation I equals to 1 to n zeta I eta I, where what these etas are? This is the basis for x. Is basis for x. Is that okay? If this EI, if we write this as a standard basis, this definition will be identical, no? Tx will be x itself. If EIs are standard basis. Here we have not written this is a standard basis. With respect to any basis, we were writing this as a definition. Understood?
Yes,
if
ma'am.
I write this as eta i's are the standard basis, can you tell me what will be a resultant of this? Is it same? Zeta 1, zeta 2 up to zeta
Yes,
n,
ma'am.
right now? Which gives us actually t of x is equal to x. If this is a standard basis, and if it is not a standard basis, it will give you some scalar in the corresponding vector x, which is depending on your these scalars zeta 1 to zeta n. Okay. What about zetas? Here can I say these zetas are scalars? Zetas are the scalars, no? Why? Because those belongs to k. Correct or not? If zeta 1, zeta 2,
Yes,
zeta
ma'am.
n belongs to k n, what about zeta I? Zeta I belongs to k. Therefore, k is the scalar field. Therefore, all these zetas must be scalars. These are not the vectors. These are the scalars we were using. This is the mapping defined. Okay. Any difficulty with the mapping?
No, ma'am.
If this mapping is defined, then how many properties to show? 1, 1, onto linearity, T and T inverse are continuous. Let us go on proving all the properties one by one. Okay. Now, first step we wanted to show directly 1, 1 and onto. If I'm looking at the definition, may I say it is obviously true? Obviously true. Why? You may check 1, 1 property. Here we will write in the proof. T is bijective. Obviously. That's why I'm saying now obviously is the most dangerous word. Sometimes whatever we were writing obvious, we were not knowing the reasons. Correct now? Let us check. If I want to show 1, 1, what should I assume? No need to include this in the proof because the proof is already lengthy. What should I assume? If I want to show 1, 1?
T of x1 equal to T of x2 implies x1 equal to x2.
Time being, let me write xy, okay? T of x equal to T of y. What the definition says that? This is summation zeta I, eta I for the x. And here let me use some lambda i's, ei's. Is that okay? Okay. Now, if these two summations are equal, what can I say? EIs are the same vectors, same basis vectors used. Therefore, may I say if these two vectors are same, under the same basis vectors, may I say the scalars are same?
Yes, ma'am.
And if the scalars are same, may I say the vectors x and y are also same. Zeta 1 to zeta n equal to lambda 1 to lambda n, which is equal to x is equal to y. Right now? One is obvious. What for onto? This is one vector in the codomain space we have. For this vector in X, can you find out one vector in Kn space? Actually, the scalars are nothing but the scalars itself contribute the vector in Kn space. Right now, if you take these as a scalars, it will be the pre-image in Kn. Therefore, may I say it is onto also? Therefore, no need to prove one and onto property. We were going directly for linearity now. Yes, any difficulty?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Now let us prove that this is linear. To prove that T is linear. Okay. To prove linearity, let me take two vectors in the domain space with one scalar and let us consider the linear combination of those vectors. Right now, so let me consider a vector x denoted with this x equal to zeta 1, zeta 2 up to zeta n and y some psi 1, psi 2 I will write, some psi 1, psi 2, psi n, v vectors in, yes, vectors in which
Yeah.
space? Kn space, and alpha b any scalar. Scalar from which field you have to take? K. Okay. Now, let me consider the T image of this linear combination of the two vectors, say alpha x plus y. And what is the aim to show? This is alpha times tx plus ty. Okay. Let me write the vectors. Alpha x we have written zeta 1, zeta 2 to zeta n. Added with this we have written some psi 1, psi 2 to some psi n. Okay. Then what is the linear combination? Coordinate wise operation one should follow, right? Therefore, is it
Yes,
alpha
ma'am.
zeta 1 plus psi 1, alpha zeta 2 plus psi 2 upon alpha zeta n plus psi n. How we were writing the definition then? T definition. T of zeta 1 to zeta n, we were writing summation zeta I ei. Ith coordinate we have to consider multiplied by ei, right now? What is my ith coordinator in this? Is it
Alpha zeta I plus psi I.
Very good. And it is multiplied by a vector, standard basis vectors ei. Sum is running from I equals to 1 to n. It's very easy, na? Therefore, how can I separate the sum? Alpha is independent of I. Can I write directly summation? I equals to 1 to n zeta I ei added with summation psi I ei. What it is going to give us again? Is it alpha tx? And this is ty. Hence, we have proved T image of alpha x plus y is alpha tx plus ty, which implies T is linear. Which implies T is linear. Let me go for third step to prove that T is continuous. T inverse continuous will be our last step. Okay. As this T is linear, may I say it is sufficient to prove that it is bounded?
Yes, ma'am.
That is to prove that T is bounded. Here I can write T is linear. Reason. Okay, let me go for proving boundedness. What can I do for boundedness? T is a mapping we have from K norm to X norm X. Right? Therefore, I should consider the T image of one vector. Which norm will be there under the consideration for every vector X in the domain? Where will be the T image? in the codomain. Which norm will be acting? Which norm is acting on T of x?
X norm.
Norm x. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Norm x is the norm acting on x. Therefore, while considering, what should I consider? Norm x of T of x. Right now? And what is the aim to show? This is less than or equals to some constant into norm of x. Right now?
Yes, ma'am.
This kind of inequality, norm T of x is less than or equals to k into norm of x. This kind of inequality we have to check. Therefore, we have written the norm. Let us come to the definition. What Tx definition tells us? This is summation zeta I eta I of norm x, I running from 1 to n. Okay. Now this is actually the sum of n elements. And let me use a triangular inequality. Let me separate it. What can I write then? This sum of n elements I am separating separately. Norm zeta 1 E1 plus norm zeta 2 E2 I am separating. Okay, therefore may I write this as with less equal by triangular and inequality property.
Yes, ma'am.
This is less than or equals to summation I equals to 1 to n norm of zeta I ei. Norm x of zeta I ei, right? Now let me use, this is by triangular inequality of norm x, right? Now let me use fourth property of this norm x. Knowing zetas are scalars, how can I take it out from the norm?
Modulus.
Yes, it is mod zeta I into norm x of ei by scalar multiplication property of norm x. All entry केलं होता lecture ला. Asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Why you have entered so late? It's almost 2:10.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I have changed my mobile, so meeting link is on another mobile, ma'am. That's why.
Okay. Now this is by scalar multiplication property. Mod zeta into norm x of ei. Okay. Now can I write this separation? This is less than or equals to summation mod zeta I into summation norm x of ei. I running from 1 to n. Is it okay? Next
Yes, ma'am.
statement. This term, now I am going to represent this term, I am going to replace by a less equal relation as summation mod zeta I square raised to half. The reason I am going to write here is this norm x of ei, let me keep as it is. Okay. Now, what do you think a relation between these two terms? Summation mod zeta is zeta i's or the any scalars, and here to the left I have mod zeta I square. What is the relation? What is the
Less
relation?
than. Less equal.
If I take a root on this, may I say this strictly less than or equals to holds again?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what I have used. Okay. Why I have done this? Because this is nothing but the norm defined on our Kn space, no? Distance formula. Right now? This is my distance formula. Therefore, I have just converted this to a distance formula. Therefore, can I write this as norm x? I think we have not given any number there. Let me give a number. Let me call this as statement number 1. Therefore, here I have used this 1. Okay. For norm x into summation norm x of ei, I running from 1 to n, as it is. To the left, we have started with norm x of t of x, right? Now, think of on the right. EIs are some so these are the basis elements of my X space. And if I find norm X, may I say norm X is the distance of each and every EI vector from the origin, which is a fixed scalar, right? No. Therefore, what about
Yes,
this?
ma'am.
Actually, this is a scalar, no? Norm
Yes, ma'am.
of EI. And what about sum of n scalars? Will be a scalar
Again,
again.
scalar.
So let me keep this as a fixed scalar, say capital M. I'm going to write this as norm X into capital M, where M I'm going to take summation norm X of EI. Norm is a scalar quantity, no, always. And addition of all scalars is scalar again. Therefore, this we have obtained norm X of this. I can write norm X of T of X is less than or equals to M into norm of X. Therefore, can I say T is bounded?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
T is bounded implies T is continuous. Third step we have completed, proving T is continuous with the easier manner. Okay, let us go for the fourth step to prove that T inverse is continuous. Again, knowing this is linear, may I say it is sufficient to prove that T inverse is bounded. T inverse is bounded. To prove this T inverse is bounded, directly it is not possible to go for showing T inverse is bounded. So we were going to take help of another mapping. We were going to take help of another mapping, say T1. Okay, let me explain. We have a space Kn in our hand, and the mapping is defined from Kn to X as T, right? Kn to X as T. Now let me define one more mapping from Kn to K. And the mapping is say T1. T1 is the mapping. New mapping I am defining from Kn to K. Okay. Then from X to K. If I wanted to come from X to K. What is the nature of element in K? Let us start with an element X in Kn. Its T image will be there in X. Right now, I wanted to go from X to K, means I am finding the norm of every element of this linear space K, so that the norm quantity will be a scalar quantity. And we know what is the norm defined on this norm defined on this X space. This is norm X.
Norm X.
Therefore, what is the norm value here? I am getting X to K. Is it norm X of T of X? Or I can say the mapping defined is norm X here. From X to K, which mapping I have defined? Norm X is the mapping defined. Then what is that image of this T of X under norm X? Is it norm X of T of X?
Yes.
Correct now? Okay. Then we have taken this path, Kn to X, X to K. Now let me take another path from Kn to K directly by this T1 mapping. Therefore, if I define T1 image on this X, what will be the element image? Is it T1X? Is it T1X? Therefore, let me define T1X as norm X of T of X as a new mapping, which is actually a composition of two mappings. Which two mappings? Norm X composed with T. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Try to understand this structure. Once you understand this structure, then it will be easier for you to understand the proof. Okay? But now we were going to take help of this mapping T1 in order to prove T inverse is bounded. Okay? Hope there is no difficulty in this structure. Okay. Now here first thing we have to write is whether T inverse exists or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it exists. We know that T inverse exists as T is bijective, right now? Which we have written
Yes, ma'am.
obviously true. Obviously true. Therefore, T inverse exists as per our information. Now, in order to prove that T inverse continuous, in order to prove T inverse is continuous, we define a new mapping. We define a mapping T1 as follows. See how I'm going to define T1 now. T1x and T1 I'm going to define from Kn to Ky. How I'm going to defining T1x is, yes, norm x of T of x. Okay, which implies T1 is composition of norm x and T. Okay, what about both the functions norm x and T? T is continuous, already we have proved. What about norm function? Is it continuous always? Yes. Whether norm function and T both are continuous or not? Norm is continuous or not? I want this answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, norm is continuous because initially we have proved it somewhere in first 2-3 lectures, no? Norm is uniformly continuous and hence continuous also. Therefore, knowing norm
Yes,
x
ma'am.
and T both are continuous, what about this composition?
Continuous.
Continuous.
Yes. Are both continuous. It follows T1 is continuous. Okay. Now I am going to consider one unit sphere of this domain Kn. Okay. I am going to consider domain. Why I am considering this unit sphere actually? Because unit sphere is closed and bounded, means it is compact, and under continuity, what is the image of compact set? T1 is a mapping from Kn to K. This is continuous. I am going to consider one closed unit sphere. Yes, correct? Closed unit sphere which is compact. Which is compact, no? By
Yes,
which
ma'am.
theorem it is compact? By which theorem it is compact? Borel-Lebesgue theorem. Closed bounded is compact, right now. Then what is the T of S image? Knowing T1 is continuous.
Compact.
T1 is image. Yes, this is also compact. Compact means what? Again, this is closed and totally bounded. Once I get this is closed and totally bounded, I will define the set T1. Knowing it is bounded, we can have the infima of the corresponding set. We were going to just make use of this yes compact, T1 is compact to show T1 is bounded. Sorry, T1 is set is bounded so that infima exists. And with the help of the infima of this set, we were going to show that inequality for T inverse to be continuous. Right now, what is the inequality I should prove for T inverse is bounded?
M norm x less than or equal to.
Very good. M norm x is less than or equals to norm x of T of x. Right now,
Yes, ma'am.
find this M, we are going to do this procedure. Considering yes, compact subset of domain under continuity, its image will be compact, hence bounded, hence infima exists. Okay, let me write up to this. It follows that T1 is continuous. Now consider the closed unit sphere. Yes, it's closed unit sphere. Yes, of K, that is a collection of all x in Kn such that I am taking norm x equal to 1. Boundary I am considering on it. Right? Okay. Then S is closed and bounded subset of Kn. Correct now? And by that theorem, by hence by Borel-Lebesgue theorem. आठवते का Borel-Lebesgue theorem? BSc ला कुठे
Somewhat, ma'am.
हा ऐकल्यासारखं वाटतंय?
आठवतंय मॅम.
स्टेटमेंट लिहिते मी. A non-empty subset of non-linear space is compact. Non-linear space or any vector space. Metric space I think you have studied.
Yes, ma'am.
मेट्रिक स्पेस तुम्हाला झाले ना, मग इथे मेट्रिक स्पेसेस लिहूया आपण. Space is compact if and only if it is
Closed and bound.
yes closed and bounded. If it is
Well
true for
bounded.
metric space, can I use for non-linear space or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Therefore, this by Borel-Lebesgue theorem, we will get S is compact subset of Kn. Now, since since T1 is continuous, it follows that its T image will be also compact. It follows that T1S is compact. Compact subset of what? K, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Because T1 is a mapping we are defining from Kn to K. So this is a compact subset of K. What is the meaning of compact again? This is closed and bound. Therefore, here I can say this is the bounded set, therefore infima exists. Okay? T1S is bounded subset of K and infimum exists. Right now, for bounded set, infimum exists. So let me define the infima to be small m, infimum of the set T1x such that x is in S. Okay? Okay? But what is T1x we have defined? Norm x of T of x, right? Norm x of T of x, for which I can write actually if it is a collection of elements with norm, every norm is non-negative. Therefore, may I say this infima is also non-negative? This set is an element with non-negative terms. This is the set with non-negative elements. Therefore, what about infima? May I say infima is non-negative? Yes, no? And if I remove the infima, what is the relation between arbitrary element and infima? Is everyone getting me or not? Is the voice clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is the number? By 1 we have used na somewhere. 1. Yes, only 1 we have. Let me give number 2 this. Number 2. Okay, this we have obtained number 2. Okay, now let me go for finding that particular element of the set S which gives me this infima. Therefore, I can here write that also there exists element x naught in S such that. What such that?
Ma'am, voice is not clear.
Right? Maybe some internet fluctuations. Check, is it clear now? Shall I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Due to network fluctuations, maybe some voice is breaking. Okay, now here we were writing there exists one element in S such that this infima will give me the value. Therefore, I cannot write m as some T1 of x naught from this statement. Correct? Infima exists at some point x naught of S. Okay, now we wanted to check whether m takes 0 value. Whether m takes 0, because here we have written greater equal by 0. Let us check the possibility what happens if m equal to 0. Therefore, here I am going to write if m equals to 0, then what happens? What happens then? Here m is I'm going to substitute 0. So T1 of x naught is 0, na? If T1 of x naught is 0, here it norm T1 of x naught is 0. Norm x of T1 of x naught is 0. Right now, 0 vector, therefore its norm is 0. Correct? Sorry, T1 x naught is 0. What is the definition? It's T only, na? I am using the definition T1. How we have defined T1x is norm x of T of x. Therefore, what is T1x naught? Norm x of T of x naught. Yes, it is clear. Now, if norm is 0, T of x naught is 0. If T of x naught is 0, what about x naught? T is 1, 1. Therefore, kernel T is singleton 0, na? Therefore, x naught is 0. If x naught is 0, what about norm x naught?
0.
But if norm x naught is 0, whether it will be a member of this x naught in S. In x naught, we have taken only those elements having norm value exactly equal to 1. Therefore, this x naught will not be a member of S. Okay? Here I can write as x naught is in S. It implies norm x naught is equal to 1. Therefore, which is the contradiction. Therefore, whatever we have assumed m equal to 0, is it possible?
No. No.
Hence, m equal to 0 is not possible. Therefore, m is positive number. Therefore, here I can write m is strictly greater than 0. Let me call it as statement number 3. M is strictly greater than 0. Now we are about to reach the proof. Let me just focus on this statement number 2 and 3. From 2 and 3, what I have? What I have? We get 1 m greater than 0, right now? We get m greater than 0 such that, what such that? M less than or equals to norm x of T of x, right now? M is less than or equals to norm x of T of x. But this is true for all the elements in S only. Not for all the elements in the whole space. What to do then? Let us start with an arbitrary element in the domain space. Can I convert that arbitrary element of the domain to be an element of S by dividing with its norm?
Yes, ma'am.
For any x in Kn, may I say x upon norm of x is in S. Surely x not equal to 0. Right now, if I start with an arbitrary vector and if I want to use this statement number 4 say, then I have to divide it by its norm. Therefore, the above equation becomes what this above equation becomes m less than or equals to norm of T of x upon norm of x. And it is true for all x in Kn now. Okay? Understood the switch from x equal to S to x equal to Kn? We have converted the arbitrary vector to an element of S by dividing with its norm. So let us just separate. How can I use this? Norm x is a scalar quantity. Knowing linearity, can I write this as Tx upon norm of x? Right? But norm x is a scalar. How can I take this scalar out?
With modulus.
The modulus, but norm is non-negative quantity. Therefore, can I write? It is not necessary for me to write the modulus. What we have obtained, m norm of x is less than or equals to norm x of T of x. Hence, the proof for P inverse is, it shows that P inverse is bounded, implies T inverse is continuous. Therefore, what we have shown in all, hence we have proved, hence P a mapping from Kn to x is 1, 1, 1, 2, linear, T and T inverse are continuous, right now? What it is going to imply then? Kn and x are,
Topological isomorphic.
yes, topologically isomorphic. Similarly, can I show Kn and Y are topologically isomorphic in n-dimensional space Y. Similarly, Kn and Y. What is Y? In-dimensional non-linear space. Kn and X are topologically isomorphic. Kn and Y topologically isomorphic. Hence, can I say X and Y are topologically isomorphic? Yes, and hence the proof. Any difficulty, if you have, you can ask me. Very nice construction actually there in the proof. Correct now? For T continuous, no problem up to T continuous. But for T inverse continuous, it's a challenging job. But for showing this T inverse is continuous, that is bounded, we have defined another mapping T. This is the composition. Then we have taken one compact subset of domain. Knowing T inverse T1 is continuous, its image will be compact. If image is compact, it is bounded. If it is bounded, infima exists. We have checked out the infima and we have proved the infima M is non-zero also. Means it is greater than 0. If it is greater than 0, we have just used that inequality and we have converted, this is for all x in S and that we have converted for all x in K. Once I convert it to all x in K, and this will be true and hence T inverse will be bounded and continuous. Nice proof actually with nice construction. Still, if you have any difficulty, you can ask me. Understood this?
Yes, ma'am.
You should understand that structure, the triangular structure which I shown you. If you understand this much part and why S is taken, why T1S is taken, then the whole idea is clear. Okay? No difficulty?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Then let me stop the lecture. Thank you for being with me.